We begin the Gemara today on Daf Tzad Gimel, 5 lines from the top of the Amud. The Gemara here brought that one interpretation from Rav Huna Bereid Rav Yeshua that Rabbi Akiva holds that Ein Adam Makne Dava Shalei Bala Olam. A person cannot sell or buy or to do any halacha, to bring any new chalais, that something should take effect regarding an entity that doesn't exist in the world yet. It's going to come in the future, or you're going to own it in the future, it's going to happen in the future. You can't create a sale or anything like that regarding such a thing. That's the way the Gemara interpreted Rabbi Akiva's opinion till now. So now the Gemara brings that there's other Amirayim that disagree with this, and many Amirayim here, as we'll see a whole list, and Tanaim as well, that hold Adam Makne Dava Shaloi Bala Olam. A person can make a sale for something that's not here in the world yet, or something that you don't own yet. So what was said before argues and what Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak said. Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak said the following list of Amirayim and Tanaim that received this halacha from one another. Rav Huna kerav. Rav Huna holds like the opinion of Rav, and V'Rav kerab Yanai. And Rav holds like the opinion of Rabbi Yanai. These all, they received this halacha of one from another. And Rabbi Yanai kerab Chia. Rabbi Yanai took it from Rabbi Chia, and Rabbi Chia kerabi. And Rabbi Chia learned it from Rabbi. And Rabbi Kerab Meir, Rabbi holds like the opinion of Rabbi Meir, and Rabbi Meir Kerab Eliezer ben Yaakov, and Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov Kerab Akiva, and he learned it from Rabbi Akiva, the Omar, and Rabbi Akiva said, Adam Makne Davar Shalei Ba La'olam. A person can sell something that's not here in the world yet, or is not in his possession yet. So here now the Gemara will bring, where do we find that all these Amirayim and Tanaim hold this opinion? Rav Huna Maihi, where do we see that Rav Huna says this? The Itmar, we learned the following machlokes. Hamayche peiris dekel lachavere. A person sells the fruits of a palm tree to his friend, and what this is talking about is, as Rashi says, in the middle of the winter, there are no fruits yet on the tree, but he tells his friend, I'm selling you that is now, these fruits that will come later. So it's not in the world yet. Amar Rav Huna, so Rav Huna says, Achalei ba la'olam. So before those fruits grew, yachal achseba, he could retract from the sale. But once they grow in the summer, he can't retract it anymore. So what do you see here? Even though it's true that until they come into the world, you can take back your sale, but once they come into the world, the sale takes effect, even though the time when you made the sale was before they came into the world. So he says you can sell something that's not here yet. Rav Nachman disagrees. Rav Nachman says, Af mishabal lo'ilam, even after it comes into the world, they grew, yachal achseba, you could retract from the whole sale. Why? Because the sale really never took effect. He holds you can't sell something that's not in the world b'chlal. But Rav Nachman said about this, Maidine, I would agree, the ishamit v'achel, if this buyer went ahead and took the fruits and ate it, we're not going to take it out from him. And the reason for this is, even though Rav Nachman holds the sale did not take effect, but nevertheless, this is what's called mechila. The person, the seller, he sold it thinking that the sale did take effect. So therefore, he was meichel this person these fruits. So if this person ate these fruits, he intended to sell it to him, even though legally, al pi halacha, it didn't take effect. But once he ate it, so because you were meichel, we don't collect it back from him. So here you see, Rav Huna holds, person could sell something that's not in the world. Rav, where do we see that this is Rav's opinion? So Rav Huna said in the name of Rav, person tells his friend, Sadazu, this property here, Sha'ani lekeach, that I'm planning to buy it. When I will buy it, then kenuyalach, it should be sold to you me'achsha from now. So he doesn't even have it. So kana. So Rav says that it takes effect. He didn't even buy it, yet he says, when I'll buy it, then it'll be sold to you. So even though it's in the world, but it's not in his possession yet. So this is another example where you see here that Rav said that you could sell something that's not ba'olam, that you don't own yet. There's a big discussion here in the Rishonim, starting with Taisus. You see here, there's a very long Taisus. The Taisus is addressing one word here. Why does it say, Mei achshav? Why does he have to add that word that the sale should take effect from now? If Rav holds that you could sell something that does not exist in the world yet, so you don't have to add the word me'achshav. I'm selling it to you, and it'll take effect when it comes into my possession. Why did he add the word me'achshav, that it should take effect retroactively from now? Well, no, there's a long discussion in Taisvis. Some Rishonim say that he's only adding the word me'achshav so that he should not be able to retract from the kinyan. Because we just said before, even if the kinyan takes effect now, but not until it actually comes into your possession, does the kinyan take effect? You can retract it. So he said me'achshav, that it should be retroactive, so you shouldn't be able to have charata Taisva says another pshat, that the reason he says me'achshav is because if you're making a kinyan with a star, so if the star is the whole kinyan, you write it in a document that I'm selling you this field, if that star is gone, doesn't exist when the field comes into your possession, so then that kinyan of the star will not work. The star has to be in existence when you get that field into your possession that you're selling. So that's why he's adding the word me'achshav. The Gemara continues. Again?
The field of door.
No, but it's not in his possession though. That's the same like a dovish lebaloila.
How does it come to possession? It doesn't come to him. The field is standing one place.
But he acquires ownership though. He acquires ownership. It's it becomes his. But until it's not his, it's like it's not in your world. You have no rights over it, b'chlal, and he still could sell it because of the future that it's going to become his. Weiter we see Rabbi Yanai. Rabbi Yanai, Rab Chia, we said Rabbi Yanai holds like Rab Chia, and here we'll see in a story with Rabbi Yanai and Rab Chia. The Rabbi Yanai, Havelei Arisa, Rabbi Yanai had a worker in the field. He would bring him a basket of fruits from the field every Erev Shabbos. He brought him the fruits for Shabbos. There was one day Erev Shabbos, Nogale, it became very late in the afternoon, and his worker did not arrive yet with the basket of fruits. So what's the problem? Usually he gets this basket of fruits from the field. You have to take the trumas and maisris before Shabbos to be able to eat it on Shabbos. You're not supposed to take trumas and maisris on Shabbos, but it was very late in the afternoon and he didn't come yet. So what did he do? Shakal asar miperi de beise alayu. So he took off maisris for these fruits that this worker would bring for him. So he took off maisris from other fruits that he had in his house for it before Shabbos. So he came in front of Rab Chia to ask him whether what he did was the right thing or not. So Rashi explains this is also a concept of a dava shalei ba la'olam. He's taking maisris for the future, for these fruits that his worker will bring him. He doesn't have it yet. He doesn't know, are there fruits, are there no fruits? But he's taking maisris because of the future that he's going to bring him the fruits. Could you do this or not? Amalei, so Rab Chia told him, shapir of this. Yeah, you did right. Tanya, we learned in the Braisa, you see this, you can learn this from the Pasuk, that it actually says regarding Maisris.
Those spares are already taken already.
He what?
And the spares that in his house was taken already, no?
He was taking Maisris from the fruits in his house.
Yeah, but these spares were taken before already.
Could be. Yeah. So but he has
taking Maisris from something that was taking, something that's not taken.
Could be, but so you're allowed to. You're allowed to take my. Yeah. It's his. It's his chulin produce. No, you're allowed to. You are allowed to. It's because it's his chulin produce. It belongs to him. He owns it, and he's taking from there maisris for other basket of fruits that he did not take maisris yet. Yeah. So the Tanya, we learned in the Braisa, what does the pasuk say regarding maisris? This is in the beginning of the pasuk you have here on the side of the Gemara. You see it says that. Meiser, the gancha, tiroshcha, vitzerecha, you take all the meiseris, then the pasuk concludes there and says, Leman tilmat, liyira es Hashem lekecha kol hayamim. You should learn to fear Hashem all of your days. What do we learn from kol hayamim? That you take these meiseris and you do this all of your days. So the Gemara darshans elu shabbasis v'yamim tovim. This refers to taking meiseris for the purpose of Shabbos and Yom Tov. Kol hayamim means even days like Shabbos and Yom Tov. So Rashi says what the pasuk here is saying is be careful to take the meiseris in the right time so that you should be able to use your produce for Shabbos and Yom Tov and you shouldn't miss out in the mitzvah of Einik Shabbos. So the Gemara now explains what is exactly that we're learning from this pasuk. Lamai hilchaseh. So what is it that you learn from these two words, kol hayamim? Is it coming to tell you that on Shabbos and Yom Tov itself, if you have produce that the meiseris was not taken yet, that on Shabbos and Yom Tov you can take the meiseris and eat, it's the chkral mishri tiltul de rabbanan? Do you need to learn from a pasuk that this is allowed? The isser of taking meiseris on Shabbos and Yom Tov is only a isser of muktzeh or isser of shvus, a isser de rabbanan. There's no isser in Atayres, so you don't need this pasuk to teach me that if you're stuck in a situation where you have nothing to eat other than this, that you didn't take maestris from, that you would be allowed to take the maestris on Shabbos and Yom Tov. So don't you think kahai gavna, that it's talking about over here in this case that you have this fruits that you're waiting for before Shabbos and Yom Tov, and you want to take it now. You want to take it before Shabbos and Yom Tov. So the pasuk here is coming to say that you're allowed to take the fruits, the maisres from these fruits, even though it's a davar shaloi ba la'olam. You want to take it before Shabbos and Yom Tov, so you should have it already prepared before Shabbos and Yom Tov and not have an issue with your Einik Shabbos. That's what we learn from this pasuk. So Taisus over here asks, so if that's the case, so then This is not something only benegayah to Shabbos and Yontif. This is Bechlal. I mean, we're trying to prove from here that Rabbi Yanai and Rabbi Chia both held that when you do something which is still loy bala olam, it's not in the world yet, it takes effect. So this is not only for Shabbos and Yontif, Bechlal. That whatever you do for something that's not here yet takes effect. So this is lav dafka regarding Shabbos and Yontif. So Elamai, the Ritva says, the Pshat is that true, they hold that you always can take Maisris to do anything that's loy bala olam, but by the mitzvah of Maisris, lichat chila, you should take only Maisris for what you already have in your possession. It's better. It's better, even though it's going to take effect without that, but it's still better to take the Maisris only once you have it. And that's why we learn from here, from this pasuk, Kol hayamim, that in a case where you might be delayed in your mitzvah of Einik Shabbos, you're allowed to take the Maisris before, even though those fruits that you're taking Maisris for are not even here yet. So the Gemara finishes off this story here that happened with Rab Chia, Rab Yanai. Rab Yanai was asking Rab Chia about this, and he asked him, Amalei said to Rab Chia, V'ha akariyim bechelme. I had a dream. That Friday night he had a dream, and it was read to him in a dream, Koner rotzotz, a broken reed. So he was thinking, what is this coming to tell me? My love, doesn't this dream mean, really? This is what they were telling me. There's a pasuk that uses this term of koner rotzotz. Hine betachta locha al mishenes hakona harotzotz. You're relying and you're leaning upon this broken reed. Hakona rotzotz hazeh. So in other words, he was saying, maybe this is a message for me that I did the wrong thing to take the maisres when the produce that wasn't even brought to me yet. So Rav Chia told him, actually the pasuk, there's another pasuk where it says Kana Ratzotz, and it's in the positive. Kana Ratzotz la yishbar, pishta keya la yichbena. This broken reed will not break, and the flax that's weak will not extinguish. Adarabah. So it was coming to say to him that don't worry, that he should not be concerned about what he did because it was right. The maisis that was taken was perfect. The next opinion that we see that also held that you could do something even though it's loy bala olam is Rebbe. The Tanya, we learned in the Braisa. It says in the pasuk, loy sasgir eved al adainav. You should not lock up a slave to his master. What kind of slave is it talking about that the pasuk is saying that don't keep him locked up to the master? If it's a slave that you already freed, it's obvious. So what are we talking about? So Rabbi says, b'lekeach eved. It's speaking about a person that's buying an eved, and he buys him with the following condition. Al menas l'shachrarai. He tells him, I'm buying you, and when I buy you, you'll be freed. Akasam medaber. That's what this pasuk is speaking about. So heichi dami, what does this mean? Omer Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, the Kasav Lei, he writes to this eved, the document that he buys him, he writes in it, when I will acquire you, hare atzmecha konui loch. You will be sold back to yourself. Me'achshav, from now. For whatever reason, the person is doing this. Maybe he wants to free him, he wants to buy him from someone else. The other person is not ready to free him, and you want to free him, so you buy him from someone else, and you tell him, when I'm going to buy you, you'll be free. So we see over here, you could free him, you could sell this eved back to himself, even though you don't own him yet. You're selling the person back to himself before you own him, so that's a davar shlei balayla. So Rabbi holds, you could be makna, davar shlei balayla. Rab Meir, and you see Rab Meir holds this as well. The Tanan, or the other gears here is the Tanya, we learned in the Braisa. So this halacha we had before, but here Rab Meir says as follows. So Isha. Person says to a woman, Hareyat mekudeshes li la'achar she'es gayer. You'll be married to me after I become a ger. So he's not even a ger yet. So this whole marriage that he's speaking about is not possible now. It's all for the future. La'achar she'tes gairi, or after you'll become a geyeris. Or la'achar she'eshtachrer, after I will be freed. La'achar she'tishtachreri, after you will be freed. La'achar she'yomas bailech, I'm going to marry you after your husband dies. Or la'achar she'tomas achaysech, or if he's married to her sister, he says after your sister dies and I'll be allowed to marry you, then the kedushin should take effect. Or la'achar she'yachlitz lach yevamich. If she's a Yevama and she has to wait for Chalitza, he says to her, after the Chalitza is done, then I'll be married to you. Eina Mukadesha. So the Tanakama says the Kiddushin does not take effect because it's a Davar Shel Bal Olam. He's being Mekadesh for something that's not possible B'chlal now. Rab Meir says Mukadeshes. The Kiddushin does take effect, even though it's not possible now, but in the future when it'll take effect. So you see that Rab Meir also holds you could be Mekadesh Isha for Davar Shel Bal Olam. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov also has the same opinion. The Tanya, we learned in the Braisa, Yeser al-Kain Omar Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov says even more than this. So the beginning of this Braisa here speaks about a person that has produce in his field, part of it is already tolush, it's detached from the field, and part of the produce is still mechuber, it's still attached to the field. The produce that's attached to the field is not chayiv in the trumas and maasros yet, and you can't take any trumas and maasros from it. The produce that's detached, you could. So the Braisa there in the beginning says that nevertheless, if a person says that I'm taking maaser from what's attached to what's not detached, or in the reverse, it will take effect. And the reason is, even though what's mechuber is not chayiv in trumas and maasros yet, and it's like a davar shlei b'layla, you're taking trumas and maasros for something that does not exist yet. There's no chiv of trumas and maasros on it yet, but nevertheless, here there's a difference because it's biyadai. It isn't your possession. You have the power to cut it off at any moment. So therefore, over here, you could take the trumas and maasros even though it's lei b'layla because it's biyadai. That's the Tanakama. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov goes even a step further. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov says, "Afile mamar," even if he says, "Peiris harugazu tlushim," that the peiris of this batch of fruits that are already detached, yiu trumal peiris haruga mechubarim, or zu mechubarim, they should be truma for another batch of fruits that are still attached to the ground. Or he says the reverse, peiris haruga mechubarim, this batch of fruits that are still attached to the ground will be trumas and maasros al peiris zu tlushim, for another batch of fruits that are already detached. And then he adds another point, and this is not in the person's hands. Le keshe yaviu shlish. It's not only it's not detached yet, but it didn't even grow yet, even a third. And he says when it's going to grow a third, then, so that's the minimum amount that it has to be ripe in order to detach it and be chayiv and trumas and maasros. When it's going to grow a third, ve'yitlashu, and then I'll detach it, so then it should take effect. V'hiviu shlish, v'nitlashu, and it grew a third, and he cut it, dvar of kayamin. The words that he said took effect. So even though whether it's going to grow a shlish or not is not in your hands, and this is something in the future, it's like bala ilam, the trumas and maasros takes effect. So Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov holds that you could give maaser for something which is like bala ilam. Rabbi Akiva, so this is the source of all these opinions. Rabbi Akiva, we also see, holds the same. We learned in the Mishnah, so this was brought before in the Gemara already. Kainam shani oise lepicha. A woman comes and says to her husband that I'm making a neder, that the income that I earn should be also for you to have benefit of it. So the Tanakama says, Ein etzarech lahafer. The husband does not have to go and annul this kind of a vow. Why not? Because it's not hers to take away from her husband. One of the things that a woman has that belongs to her husband is the money she earns. So therefore, if she makes a neder that you can't have a na of it, it's not in her power to do that, b'chlal. Rabbi Akiva says, Yafer, he does have to annul this vow because Shemet Tadif Olav Yesim Aroiloi. There's only a certain amount of income that a woman has to give to her husband. The Gemara in Ksubis explains what the shiur is, and beyond that, she could hold for herself. So when she makes this neder that her husband cannot have any hana from her income, maybe it's beyond that limit. Maybe she's speaking about also what she owns herself. So therefore, the husband would have to annul this vow. Now, but the point is, what do you see over here? She's making a neder regarding income that she didn't even earn yet, b'chlal. How could it take effect on this money that she doesn't even have b'chlal in her possession? Nevertheless, Rabbi Akiva says the neder takes effect, even though it's like baloilam. So here, this is the source where Rabbi Akiva is the source of all of these opinions that you can be makna or davar shaloi baloilam. So that's the conclusion of this sugya. Now the Gemara goes back to a question which is related to the Mishnah we learned before. The question was asked from Rav Sheshes. Eid echad b'yevame mahu. Regarding an eid echad for a yevame, what would be the halacha? Meaning, if you have an eid echad that comes and says to a woman, your husband died, and he died without any children, and therefore now you're obligated to do yibum for the brother. What's the halacha? So the question basically is, we had before in the beginning of the Perek the halacha that a woman that an eid echad comes and tells her that her husband died, she can go and get remarried. We said before, we're mekel that you go and get remarried. But now the Gemara says, we have a question regarding a woman that's not going to go get remarried to anybody, but eid echad is telling her that her husband died and she has to do yibum now. Will we trust eid echad in this case or not? Why should it be any different? So the Gemara explains, do I say the reason why we trust an eid echad is mishum de milse the avide la agluye. The rule is when there's a subject that eventually will be exposed, lo mishaker. People don't lie about this. So over here, when an eid echad comes and says that this guy died, eventually the truth of whether he died or not will come out. If this guy did not die, he's going to eventually, very possibly, show up. So the eid echad would not lie about this. So do we say that that's a major part of why we believe in eid echad in such a case? So v'hacha nami, if so over here as well, when an eid echad says that your husband died and you have to do yibum, loy mishaka, we can rely on the fact that he doesn't lie. Or perhaps time of the eid echad, there's an additional reason, or really the main reason. Taisus here explains what the Gemara is saying is the main reason why we trust an eid echad is mishum di'ihi daike o minsaveh. Because we rely on a woman, she knows if she gets remarried when her first husband is still alive, she's causing herself major problems. She's an Eishes Ish, her children will be mamzerim. She's very careful and she investigates the matter. That's what we're relying on. So that's an usual case. We rely on her making this investigation. But v'hacha, over here in this case, when she would have to do yibum to get married to the husband's brother, kivin de zimnin, sometimes it's possible, derach malei, that she loves the brother. She has a certain interest in marrying the brother. So therefore, ledaiko minsava, she's not going to necessarily make such a good investigation before she runs to get married to this brother. Maybe over here, we can't rely on her making a proper investigation. Maybe this is her brother-in-law, and maybe she had some kind of relationship with him. Should we be concerned about this? And therefore, we can't rely on her making this investigation. Amalu Rav Sheishes, so Rav Sheishes answers to Nisua. So this halacha we could learn from what it says in the Mishnah before here. What does it say in the Mishnah? Amrullah, Adam came and tell a woman, Meis benech, first your son died, vachkach meis bailech, and then your husband died. So what does that mean? So now she's chayiv in yibum. Her husband died without any children. And v'nes yabma, and she did the mitzvah of yibum. Now v'achakach amrullah, then she was told, Adam came and told her, chiluf advarim. No, really it wasn't the opposite what happened. That really your husband died first and then your son died, so you were not chayiv in the mitzvah of yibum, which means that the whole yibum, the child that's born, it was a eishes ach, you weren't allowed to marry this brother. So what happens? Tate says, so she has to leave, avlad rishon v'achrim mamzer. A child she had in the beginning or at the end, the child is a mamzer. That's the case we had in the Mishnah. So now the question is, hey chidami, what are we speaking about? Who exactly told her that first her son died and then her husband died, and who then came and changed it? What happened there? If the case is that first two Adam came and said that her son died first, and then another two Adam came and said, no, the reverse happened. So the question is, why are you relying on the second group of Adam that say that her husband died, that the husband died first, and therefore now she does not need to do Yibum? Maybe rely on the first group of Adam, like it was in the beginning, that said that the son died first, and she does have to do Yibum. Why are you relying on the second group of Adam, and you're saying she has to leave, and the child is a mamzer? That's the question here. Taisus adds to the Gemara, even though the Gemara is asking, like, how do you know which group of Adam to rely on? But, it is a suffix. Anytime you have 2 against 2, it should be a suffix. So she should have to leave her husband, which is a yavam, just mitzad a suffix. So Taisus says, based on what we once learned before in the Gemara, that if she and her yavam both say that we know for sure that the brother, the first husband, died, so they are allowed to stay married, because it's only a suffix over here. And it's in a case of a trey. If the woman herself and her new husband says, we know for sure the husband died, they could remain married. So in that case, the Gemara's question is, why would she have to leave her husband now, her yavam now? Another question, va'oid, mamzer suffix. Mamzer suffix. Mamzer. One second, did I skip something over here? Void mamzer, suffix mamzer. Why does the Mishnah say that the child that's born is a mamzer? It's not a mamzer. In this case, it's 2 against 2. So the child that's born, we're not sure if the first husband, the brother, is alive or not. So the child is just a suffix mamzer. So how can the Mishnah say mamzer? If you're going to say loidak regarding this second question, you'll argue and say when the Mishnah says that the child that's born a mamzer, it doesn't mean a mamzer. It means that the child is only a suffix mamzer, because we're not sure if the first husband is alive or not. Says the Gemara, we can't say that, because we see in the end of the Mishnah that the term mamzer means for sure. In the Seif of the Mishnah it says, Harisha mamzer v'ha'achrein eina mamzer. In the Seif of the Mishnah, it speaks about a case where when she got married to her second husband, the first husband was still alive. Then afterwards he died. So now the Mishnah there says that the first child is a mamzer and the second child is not a mamzer. Over there, when it says yes mamzer and no mamzer, it means vadai mamzer. Right? Because the truth is, even the second child that's born, so midrabanan, he's still a mamzer. But it's still, the Mishnah says he's not a mamzer because it's saying he's not a mamzer vadai. Over there in the Seif of the Mishnah, the terms of mamzer means vadai mamzer. So shma mina dafke katani. So we see that the term mamzer means vadai mamzer. So therefore the question is, what's the pshat in this Mishnah? We can't say that the case is trei. Two are saying that the son died first, two are saying that the husband died first. If it's 2 against 2, it's only a suffix. Elalav, so don't you think the pshat in our Mishnah here is shmami? No, we can conclude from here and say the pshat is as follows. Chad. First there was 1/8. 1/8 came along and said that the son died first and then the husband. So you have to do yibum. And then afterwards, 2/8 came along and said that no, the reverse happened. The husband died first and then the son. That's the case over here. And therefore she's going to have to leave the Yavam because 2 against 1. It's not 2 against 2. It's 2 against 1. That's why she has to leave. So now what can we understand from here? The only reason she has to leave her husband the Yavam is because now 2/8 came and contradicted the Eid Echad. If 2/8 did not contradict the Eid Echad, mehemen, that Eid Echad would be believed, and we accept the words of the Eid Echad that she can go and get married to a Yavam. So this answers the question that the Gemara asked before, whether we trust an Eid Echad for her to get married to her Yavam. Right over here we see in our Mishnah, she can. Others say that this question, whether a woman can go and get married to her Yavam based on the words of an Eid Echad, that's not even a question at all. Why not? That we see from a later Mishnah here in the Masechta, even she herself, she's also believed to say that her husband died to get married to the brother, the Yavam. The Tnan, it says in the Mishnah, Ha'isha Shamra, a woman comes and says, Meis Baili, my husband died, Tinase. We rely on what she says and she can get married. And then Meis Baili, and if she says her husband died and she had no children, Tisyava, we rely on what she said that she can do Yibum. So according to this version, if we believe she herself to say this about herself, for sure we believe in Eid Echad as well. However, what is the question here? The Mishri Yevame la'alma. The question is regarding a Yevame. If an Eid Echad comes and says that you had a husband and a son, and your husband died, and the son died afterwards, and therefore you can go and get married to anybody. That's the question. Do we rely on the Eid Echad to be matter this Yevama to go get married to anybody else? That's the question. What's the shaila? Now the Gemara here explains the question similar to what we said before. Do I say, my time Eid Echad? What's the reason why I always trust the Eid Echad regarding a woman to say that her husband died? Mishom the milsa Davida lagloya lemishaker. The main reason is because things that people know that is going to be exposed, eventually people don't lie about this. That's so that we can rely on the Eid Echad. Hachanami lemishaker. So here as well, people will not lie about this. So being matter, this Yevama to get married to anybody, people won't lie about it. Or perhaps time of Eid Echad, the reason why we rely on Eid Echad is because a woman is going to be very specific to investigate before she gets remarried. But for her, in this case, maybe she's not going to be medayik, and here the Gemara says actually an opposite svara of what it said before. Why is she not going to be medayik? The misna hu the sanyale. It's very possible that this woman hates her brother-in-law, and she's so excited to get the information that her son that died after her husband, and she does not have to do yibum. She will not have to get married to her brother-in-law, that she doesn't bother making an investigation. So even before the Gemara said the opposite. Before the Gemara said possibly she loves her brother-in-law and she wants to get married to him, but the Gemara is saying it's also possible that the opposite is true. That she hates him and therefore she runs to go and get married to someone else, and she doesn't make a proper investigation. Amalu Rav Sheishes. So again, Rav Sheishes proves this from our Mishnah. Tenisua, we learned in our Mishnah, Amrullah. So it was said to this woman, Meis Bailech v'achkach Meis Benech. Your husband passed away and then your son passed away. So that means she's not obligated to do Yibum, because the son was alive first. So Venisis, and now she went and got married to anybody else. And then she was told, what happened was the exact opposite. The son died first and then the husband, so she does have to do Yibum. So Teitzei, so she has to leave her husband now, and the child that's born, the first and the last child born, will be a mamzer. So again, the Gemara asks, what exactly is the case here? Who said first that the husband died first? Who said afterwards that the husband died? Who changed this? Who said this? Hey Chidami, are we speaking about that first 2 Adam came and said that the husband died first, and then another 2 Adam came and said no, the son died first? My chazis the samchasahani, smoichahani. Why are you relying on the second group of Adam, relying on the first group of Adam? Why are you forcing her to leave her husband? V'oid, another question. This is the same thing like the Gemara said before. Mamzer, how could you say that the child born is a mamzer? Safek mamzeru. If it's a trey, 2 against 2, you don't know. So the child is only a safek mamzer. And if you'll argue and say when the Mishnah says mamzer, it wasn't precise, and the taka only means safek mamzer. But Hamadiktani Seife, later in the Mishnah it says Arisha mamzer va'achrin ein a mamzer. And over there it means literally that the first is for sure a mamzer and the last one is not a mamzer min atayre. Shema min adadafka katani. So there I see that it means literally. Elalav. So therefore, what do we have to say? What's the pshat in the Mishnah? Chad, 1/8 first came and said that the husband died first and then the son, and therefore she doesn't need to do yibum. And afterwards, v'taime. The only reason now we believe to say that the reversed happened is the asabei tereyach chashua, because 2 Eidim came and contradicted the Eid Echad. Ha lav hachi. But if 2 Eidim would not contradict what the Eid Echad said, mehamin, I would believe the Eid Echad to say that she can go and get married to whoever she wants. So I see over here that I believe an Eid Echad to be matter, a woman to go get married to whoever she wants, and that there's no mitzvah of yibum. So the Gemara says, no, there's no raya from here. It's interesting, in the first version, the Gemara did not give this answer, but here the Gemara answers, la'olam, really I could say, trei utrei. That the case here is that there was 2 against 2. So what was our question? If it's 2 against 2, why are we trusting the second group more than the first? So the answer is, so he said, be'edei hazoma. Over here what we're speaking about is the second group of Eidim are not simply contradicting the first group, but they're being mazim the first group. That's a whole different thing. What's the halacha of hazoma? When the second group of Eidim comes and says regarding the first group, how could you say testimony that this happened, that the husband died first and then the son? You were with us in a different location. You weren't even there. So when the second group of Eidim are saying Imanu wa Yisem, they're being mazim, the first Eidim that you weren't even present there, then we do trust the second group. That's the halacha of Azama. So Achanami Beidi Azami here, that's what our Mishnah is speaking about, and therefore we trust the second group. The Gemara now brings another raya to this question. Again? Why we trust the second group? This is the halacha of Hazama. Hazama is that you're not contradicting the words, the story that the first group said. Rather, what you're saying is that the first group, the people, the Eidim themselves, you say that they weren't even present there to be able to say this about this. Then the Torah says... You could say the same thing about the second group, no? No, but that's not what happened though. The second group said regarding the first group that they weren't even there. Okay. So therefore we trust them. So he brought a raya from another brayse. It says, Tashema, Eina Isha Namenes Loima Meis Yevami. A woman is not believed to say that my yavam, the yavam that I'm supposed to do yibum with, died. She'enna say that I can get married to anybody else. And v'loi meisa chaysi, she can't say that my sister died. She'akonis lebeisa, that I can get married not to her husband. So the Gemara says, Hai niu deloi mehemna. He ni deloi mehemna. She herself is not believed. That's what it seems like from here. It says a woman herself is not believed to say this. But we could be medayik from here. Hai dechad mehemen. But an Eid Echad would believe. Only she's not believed to say this because she's in a gay bedava. She's just doing it for her own sake. But Eid Echad would be believed. So the Gemara says, if so, all the time, according to this diuk that you're deducing here from the words of this brayse, Eime Seifa. What does it say in the Seifa? Eine ishnem an loima. A man is not believed to say, Meis achi, my brother died. Yevamos ishtei. So that now I could do yibum for his wife. And v'loi meisa ishti she'esa esachaysa. And he's also not believed to say that his wife died in order for him to be able to marry the sister. So are you going to make the same diuk here? Are you not going to say, Hu niyo deloi mehemen? The man himself is not believed. Ha'eid echad mehemen. But an eid echad is believed to say this. That's not true though. Why not? So the Gemara explains, Bishlai megabe isha. When it comes to a woman which is stuck and she doesn't know if she can get remarried or not. So over here, Mishumiguna Akila Barabana, like this whole entire Perek began, the whole leniency that we have, that we believe in Eid Echad, is only for the sake of a woman that we don't want her to be stuck. A woman can't get remarried. She can't have 2 husbands. So therefore, for her, Chachamim were Mekel. Ela Gabi Ish, but when it comes to a man that wants to marry a certain woman, we never say such a thing. We never say that he can rely on an Eid Echad to get married to a certain woman. Because a man is not stuck. A man could always marry someone else. You can marry more than one wife. By a man, there's no such a kula. So what are you going to say? So how could you be medayik from this brayse, even in the Sefer, regarding the man that we would trust in Eid Echad? Elo. So therefore, what the Gemara says is, you can't be medayik this from this brisa. Not in the Reisha and not in the Sefer. It's not coming to say that you could trust an Eid Echad. Rather, what's this brisa coming to teach me? Ki itzterech l'Rab Akiva. This brisa is coming to teach me a chiddush according to Rab Akiva's opinion. Ki itzterech l'Rab Akiva itzterech. It's a chiddush according to Rab Akiva. What's the chiddush according to Rab Akiva? I would think to say, Hoyel v'omer Rab Akiva, since Rab Akiva said, Yesh mamzer mechayev elavin, that there is a mamzer, a child that's born from an isser of a lav. So eime chayshe akulkula dezara v'daika. So maybe I should say, this woman that's coming and saying that my yavam died, and therefore I can go get married to whoever I want, that's an isser of a lav. For a woman to get married to someone else when she has a yavam is only a isser of a lav. But if we pass like Rabbi Akiva, even if you're being over a lav, your child will be a mamzer. So maybe because of this, even when the woman herself says that her yavam died, she's so concerned about this, that a child will be a mamzer, so therefore she'll be medayik that before she gets remarried to anyone else, and we should trust her. Kamash Malan. So that's why what we say over here is that no, she does not. She's not medayik here. Da kilkula dido chaysha, kilkula dezara lechaysha. Okay, we're not guided this. Okay, let's leave that out for now. So therefore, there's no raya from this brisa because there's nothing you can be medayik from this brisa. Now the Gemara says that Rava, he answered this question whether we believe a woman in this case to say that she's not chayiv in the mitzvah of yibum. So Rava said, Misvara, she should be believed. Why? Rava said, Eid echad nemon b'yevame mikal v'chaymer. We should believe in Eid echad regarding this case of yevame, that she can go get married to whoever she wants with a kal v'chaymer. Why? Le'isa karis hitarta, when it comes to a isa karis. When you have an eishes ish, there's an isser of karis. You believe in Eid echad to say that her husband died. Le'isa lav le'kol shekain. Over here, when you're speaking about this isser of a woman to go get married to someone else, it's only a isser lav for her to get married to someone else. You're not going to believe in Eid echad. It's a much lighter isser. So Amalei Ahumir Rabbana l'Rava. So one of the Rabbanan said to Rava, no, this svara is not acceptable. Hi atzma techiach, when it comes to the woman herself, she being believed for herself. So what's the halacha? Over there, the halacha is the le'isa kares hetarta. If a woman herself says, my husband died, she can go get married to someone else. Le'isa lav lo yitarta. But for Isser of a lav, you do not believe a woman to say that her yavam died. Why? What's the difference? Even though it's a much more lenient thing, but you don't believe her. Over there we make that distinction. So therefore there's still a question regarding an Eid echad. And here the Gemara explains, why not? Why don't we believe a woman herself to say that her yavam died if it's a much lighter Isser? The Ella ihi my time mehemna. Why is a woman not believed to say that her yavam died if she's believed to say that her husband died, and that's a much bigger Isser? So the answer is, like we said before already, the kivin, the zimnin, the sanyale. Sometimes she hates this yavam. She really, really doesn't want to marry her. So ledaiko min seve. So she's not so precise. She's not so medayik before she goes and gets remarried. Eid echad nami. If so, I could say the same thing regarding an Eid echad. Kivin, the zimnin, the sanyale. Ledaiko min seve. Since by Eid echad, one of the major reasons we trust an Eid echad is because we're also relying on her to make an investigation. But in this case, if she hates her yavam, she won't make a proper investigation. So therefore, maybe we still don't trust her. So therefore, the Gemara does not accept Rava's answer. Okay, let's just finish off till the Mishnah. It said in the Mishnah, Zeh Medrash Darash Rabbi Elazar ben Masya v'chulu. So Rabbi Elazar ben Masya said in a case when you give a get and the get was not needed b'chlal, so the get doesn't do anything, it doesn't passel her to a kohen. Right? So in a case when it turns out that she got married to somebody else and her first husband was still alive, and the second husband gave a get, the second get was nothing. So there he said that it doesn't passel her. And he learned it out from a pasuk because it says, V'isha grusha me isha. If she's divorced from her husband, then she can't marry the kohen. But this is not her husband. So on this, so Zeh Medrash Darash Rabbi Elazar ben Masya v'chulu. So Amar Rav Yudah Marav, Havalei Rabbi Elazar leMidrash ben Marginta. And he should have darshaned a precious gem. There's a much better drasha to darshan here. V'darash bechaspa. And he darshans a drasha that's just like a piece of earthenware. My Marginta, what better drasha is there from what he actually darshaned? The Tanya we learned in the Braisa, V'isha grusha me isha. Why does it add that word me isha from her husband? Afilolein is garsha ela me isha. Even a woman that had a get that was given to her, that's only a get from her husband. Now, this is not a kosher get. If a man writes to his wife, I'm divorcing you. Hareya mogireshes. You're divorced only from me, and not from any, and you're not allowed to marry anybody else. Does such a get take effect? No. When a person divorces his wife, he can't write in the get that you're not allowed to marry anybody else. You only divorced to me. So such a get never took effect. So psula l'kohona, but nevertheless, she still would become puzzled to the kayin, and v'hainu reyach haget, because there's an aroma, there's a smell of a get here. Even though the get is not kosher, but because he gave her this get, nevertheless, it still has a reyach haget, because she got a get mei isha. She did receive a get from her husband, even though it wasn't kosher, the paisel of a kohen, and therefore it passes her to the kayin. That's a precious gem, a chiddush that you learn out from this pasuk.
So he's saying that it should be possible?
Yeah, Adarabah. The Mishnah was coming to say fakert, right? That you learn out from here that you're not posel, right? And he's saying there's a drasha to learn out. May Isha, if she received this type of posel get from her husband, she still will be posel to her kain because of reyach haget. It's a smell of a get.